My name is Doug Hascall. I am the Firmware Engineering Manager for our iLo product. I'm responsible for the development and testing of iLo, not only on our ProLiant servers, our ProLiant Gen8 servers, but also on our BCS Integrity and Superdome 2 servers. So I have a lot of servers I got to take care of. I've cut my normal talk down to 2 slides in 25 minutes, so we'll try and move as fast as we can. Normally it takes a lot longer than that. So I'm going to talk about the Generation 8 enhancements. I'm going to hope that you already know about what we've been doing for the last over a decade on our integrated lights out management. That iLo performs important services to the server. We've been doing it for quite some time. And I like to say that virtually every invention in the space of remote management has come on a ProLiant or HP server. Things like our hardware-based graphical remote console, high-grade security, virtual media capabilities, dynamic power capping capabilities. All that stuff is all run through iLo. And as I'm commonly say, I'm not at all fair and balanced at all in my opinion of the product that my team creates. And we have, again, a decade of work on this, and this is the hallway outside my lab with 35 feet of iLo patents leading up to the lab door. Making sure that everybody that works on iLo knows about the history of the iLo product, and they're prepared to add onto the patent wall on the end. It's also chronologically based from left to right, so every time there's a new patent, I have to shift them all down to the left to maintain that chronological aspect to it. But you know, it's the little things that matter, right? Okay, so let's switch over to our demonstration now. Let me get logged into a Generation 8 server that's up in my lab, and I'm also going to connect up to our SIM server. And what I'm going to show you are, there's 3 big new technologies that are part of our Generation 8 servers that iLo provides. Agentless Management, Active Health System, and Embedded Remote Support. All 3 of those technologies work together to provide great management support for iLo. And what it's all about is, it's really all about the functionality is just built into the server. There's nothing to install, it's ridiculously easy to configure, and it's super easy to use. So, from a management perspective, we talk about agentless management. iLo is involved in monitoring key subsystems inside the server. And you see I've got a list here, and I've got a mix of some things that are functioning well and some things that are not so well. So iLo monitors the CPU, memories, temperature sensors, fans, power supplies, smart array controllers, and internal hard drives, both logical and physical, that are connected up to smart array controllers. It does all of that regardless of the operating system and regardless of the state of the operating system. So in my demonstration here, I'm going to show you, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to crash the OS and then show you all of this capability running in an agentless manner. So let's get our industry-leading integrated remote console launched. So what I have here is I've got a Windows 2008 server, and I'm running a beautiful backdrop on it, unlike most of our customers, so I want you to see the 32,000 colors that are provided through our remote console. But today I'm not going to talk about the great features of the integrated remote console, the fact that you can scroll, and there's never a scroll bar associated with it. We scale the windows down, that it's 8 times faster than our previous generation, and we have 3.6 times faster virtual media. I'm not going to talk about any of that stuff. I am, however, going to use our virtual NMI button, and I'm going to use it to crash the operating system. And so you see now the server's in a blue screen state, and that's to show you there's nothing up my sleeves, that we are actually running in a truly agentless manner. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use one of our debug tools. This is something that we use in our lab, and I'm going to use it to simulate a failure. So you can see on our system information page, we note that an NMI has occurred, that we are in a failed state, but the fans are still running just fine. So all of our fans, you see 6%, 13%, very low RPMs due to our sea of sensors technology, up to 50 different temperature sensors on this DL380 Gen 8 server. And better data leads to better results, leads to lower cooling. We want to run the fans as slow as possible and still keep them cool. So you see here I've got 6 fans in this system. All of them are still running fine for now. Okay, so now I've induced a failure into our fan subsystem, and so we note, in addition to the page I have in the background, we also have every single page in the iLo UI also has this tab in the lower corner where we can see the power state, the health state, the language of the iLo, but also the health status of the server. And I can click on this no matter where I'm at and go see that in this case I've got a fan that's failed. Fan number 5 has failed. That's been noted on our iLo in the Integrated Management log entry. And so we see that we have system fans that are not redundant, and then we've got a fan that's failed. Over on my SIM server, I've created a private collection of this couple servers that I usually work on. And we'll note that in the situation our OS has crashed, we've received 2 fan alerts, 2 SNMP alerts. Fan failed alert and that my fan redundancy is lost. So, and these are rich alerts. They've got great detail on them. Tell us exactly, what's the fan that's failed, what system did it come from. And again, all of this information is available without any agents running on the server. So the server, again, in a crash state, we've received an SNMP alert out at SIM showing that we have a fan failure and that our fan redundancy is lost. You'll also notice a couple of informational alerts. Every time iLo comes up, it sends out what's called a cold start alert. And this allows our SIM to say, hey, there's something out there on the network. Let me go interrogate it and see what its status is. We also send this health status array change. So iLo is interrupting and sending information to SIM so that way SIM doesn't have to do that big polling loop to see what's the health status of all the systems. iLo is helping the scalability of SIM through these alerts. Okay. And I want to show you how easy it is to set up our agentless management. Again, there's nothing to install. This is all running in firmware. There's nothing required on the operating system to manage those subsystems. And all I have to do is provide a read community string and at least one SNMP alert destination. In this case, we can support IP address, short DNS name, or fully qualified DNS name. Provide one of those and a read community string and you're ready to go. Of course that can be scripted. It can either be entered through the UI or entered through scripting. It's very easy to set up. In addition to sending a SNMP alert, which goes to the customer's management framework. And so it's going to cover things like fans that have failed, or maybe it's hot in the data center, or hey, we've had someone's tried to log in too many times onto their iLo, and so we send a security alert. iLo also sends what are called service events, which leads us into our next big technology, which is the embedded remote support. And again, this is all built into iLo. There's nothing to install, and the only thing you have to configure is what is the IP address or DNS name of your Insight Remote Support 7 server. And what we'll do is, whenever there's what's called a service event, and this is something that's going to require HP to take action for a part replacement purpose. So for example, a fan that fails is going to require a part to be replaced. And so in addition to sending the SNMP alert to our SIM management framework, we've also sent a service event through Insight Remote Support all the way back to HP, where the warranty and service entitlement of this server can be checked and the part can be started the dispatch process automatically. And so you'll see in my service event history, which I can't scroll down to, we have we've sent a service event saying, hey, this fan has failed, let's start the diagnostic process, let's start the part replacement process. iLo will also send data collection information that enables our technical services people to have an intelligent conversation with the customer about, hey, what's going on in this customer's environment. And iLo can also be configured with appropriate opt-in to send what we call the active health system log every 7 days, which is the next of the big technologies I want to talk to. So we've talked about Agentless Management, which is iLo's ability to monitor systems without any drivers or agents. We've talked about embedded remote support, the capability for iLo to send service events and data collection information back to HP. The third event is our active health system. This is our always-on, built-in diagnostic capability. And this is to make it easier for our customers to receive help from HP when they need that support. Customers solve thousands of problems every single day on their own, but there are times when they need a little help from HP. And typically what happens is if you call up and ask for service and support from pretty much any vendor, they're going to send you on a scavenger hunt of information. Can I get the integrated management log? Can I get the OS event log? Can you run this diagnostic tool? Can you download this information, install this tool, gather this information, and send it off? What we've done is we've built that all into our iLo firmware. So iLo firmware starts running from as soon as the server has power and starts collecting the information that John mentioned, those 1,600 elements of server diagnostic data. And it's all stored in iLo. It's stored on a 4 gigabyte NAND chip. And so we'll have the history of the server, all the configuration changes that were ever made to that server. If HP Sum goes out and updates the system firmware and the iLo firmware and the Smart Array firmware, that gets logged as a change. If a customer adds hardware, adds a hard drive, adds memory, just does something as simple as switching memory around from one DIMM slot to another, exact same memory but just in a different location, iLo notes that as a change to the system. iLo also tracks as runtime telemetry what's going on the server. So that way we have a log of what's going on before the server had an incident, while the server is having an incident, and after the fact. You don't have to download and run a tool and hope you catch a glimpse of what goes on. This has been running while the server's on. There's nothing to install and there's nothing to configure. All I have to do is go in and say, hey, when did this happen? Okay, so sometime over this weekend, I happen to be out camping in the hill country, but this server had a problem. I select the days I want to download. I can fill in this information if I desire. It's totally optional. Click the download button. We're going to save off a file. We're going to extract it out of that NAND flash that's part of the server, and we're going to save it to my laptop's hard drive, where I can then send that information off to our service and support. You'll see we name the file, the serial number of the server, and the date of the download. And I'm going to click Save. So we're going to go off and save this file to my Downloads folder. You can see I've done this a time or two before. And we're going to start the download. Now it's going to take a little while because we're running over a relatively slow interface. But I also want you to remember that we're doing this while the server's crashed. So while the server is in a failed state, we're extracting the diagnostic data from iLo and saving it to my hard drive, where then I can then send it off either via email attachment or through an FTP upload to our service and support people. And we've trained all of our level 1 and level 2 service and support people to request this active health system data. You know, we've trained our level 1 and level 2 support people better for Gen 8 than any other generation of ProLiant server in history. We actually brought waves of our level 1 people, the folks that answer the phone, into Houston, where they talk to real engineers and real leaders of the technology about how to use it. So they're all very well trained, and they went back to their call centers and trained all the other level 1 people. So we have thousands of our service and support people trained on how to use this active health system information data. So while that's downloading, let me go back to our integrated remote console, and I'm going to reboot this server. So using our built-in power switch. Now, John alluded to this. He already gave you the answer. Normally speaking, when industry standard server boots up, you have a period of time before the video chip is initialized where there's nothing on the screen. We call that no boot, no video. So if a problem occurs prior to that video chip being initialized, the customer has no idea what's going on in that server. We saw that information, reviewing outage cases, reviewing customer information, and so we fixed it. Because at HP we still build stuff, we still invent stuff. My team writes the firmware. The iLo ASIC is custom designed in this building to be the perfect management processor for an HP server. We write our own system firmware, we write our own smart array firmware, so we can do things like put video on the screen 1, 2, 3 seconds after the server's rebooted and before the video chip is initialized. So right now, let's say I'm a customer and I've got a quad core and a 6-core CPU installed. That's not going to boot. Let's say I've got UDIMMs and RDIMMs mixed. That's not going to boot, and that check happens prior to the video chip being initialized. So all this early video is happening on the real monitor of the server and also remoted via integrated remote console through iLo before the video chip is initialized. We'll see the screen clear once we get this early boot up to 100%, and that's the point in time which the video chip has been initialized, because there's a lot of stuff that's got to run. We have to initialize the CPU, we have to run the memory reference code, initialize the QPI links, set up all the PCI buses, and right now we're initializing the video chip, and you'll see the HP ProLiant logo come on the screen. That's the first time that the video has been initialized. So everything that happened before that would have been lost to the customer. They would have gotten a beep and a black screen. And for those of you who are in the industry, you know that a beep and a black screen is a pretty cruddy system interface, right? That's not very helpful to a customer. But now we've got the early video, and we can see what's going on the server prior to it even booting and prior to there being a video chip. Okay, so again, we've got agentless management, we've got embedded remote support built into the server, we've got active health system built into the server, and then we also have one thing to talk about that's not built into the server. It's built in to your tablet or your smartphone. Because I remember 20-some years ago when I was an IT guy working for an oil company here in Houston, and I had this thing called a pager. And it wasn't even a fancy alphanumeric pager. It was a crummy pager, and it would go bzzz. And what that meant is, hey Doug, you're on call. You got to call into the data center and see what the heck's going wrong. And then whatever you're doing, out to dinner with your wife, going to see a movie, or just sitting at home watching a ball game, it's time to decide, do I need to drive in the data center to figure out what's wrong? Well, now, on February 14th, Valentine's Day, we released our first mobile applications for iLo. And so you see I'm holding a Apple iPad, and I'm going to tap on my system, and I can bring up remote console, I can launch an XML script, or I can go to the web user interface of this iLo directly from my tablet. Because just like I always had that pager with me, I always have my phone with me. And so here I am, again, sitting at the server, okay, I need to start this server up. Go ahead and click enter. I always have my phone, and I'm more likely to have my tablet than I am to have my full laptop. But the point is, here I am using a mobile device, connecting up to a server to manage that server and to see what's going on. So what can I do with this? In addition to the full remote console, I also have, what's the system health of the server? Virtual media to connect to the server, the virtual power control. In this case now, I want to go ahead and log in, so Control, Alt, and Backspace, because Apple keyboards don't actually have a delete key. Okay, so again, the same server, the same remote console, the same great look and feel. I can pinch down to see my screen. I can interact with it from a keyboard and mouse perspective. I don't want to see this, so let me zoom in on that go away button, put it away, zoom back out, start applications. So I can interact with this system. I can do virtually anything that I can do, and that's always been the design principle with iLo. Let me do anything short of changing out hardware from my laptop or my desktop, now from my mobile device. So I can interact with the server whether I'm here in this conference room talking to you, whether I'm at an airport, or whether I'm at a restaurant, but not in a movie theater. They tell me at the beginning, no smartphones. So step outside with double dream hands or whatever his name is, and leave that out there. But again, we're really proud. We're really excited about our mobile apps available for Apple devices, both tablets and phones, and also available for Android phones and devices. You can download it from the Android Marketplace or from the iTunes App Store.
What about WebOS?
What about WebOS? You know, not surprisingly, we started down this adventure when the touchpad was being launched and with WebOS. And so we had a WebOS version of the touchpad of the mobile app in development. Along the way, the company decided to change some directions, and so we changed our direction as well. So we got the Apple device and the Android device that covers about 80% of the market. So
But through the magic of CM9, you can run this very, very well on a touchpad. You
Yes.
just have to boot it with Android.
yes, it is an unsupported configuration, but yes, it is a true statement that you can run Android on your touchpad and that the iLo app will run just fine on touchpad. Yes, sir.
And I guess Windows Phone just works.
So there's a couple things. We have the integrated remote console that I showed you before, the .NET Framework one. I've run that app on our HP Slate 2 running Windows 7. So the actual .NET Framework app will pop off and run on Windows tablet devices. We are kicking around the idea of a Windows Phone version. We did focus on two devices. That was the Apple device and the Android, because that's the lion's share of the market. But we're certainly open to expanding that market and being good partners with our friends in Redmond.
Of course.
So, okay. I'm close to being done. Time for a couple more questions. What do you got?
Does iLo still require its own dedicated NIC?
It does not. It has not required its own dedicated NIC for ever.
I always said the VLAN one.
Okay, so the iLo has got a dedicated NIC. One new thing, thank you for helping me remember, is that it's gigabit capable with Generation 8, so 10, 100, or 1,000 megabits per second for the dedicated NIC. There's also the shared network port, where it can communicate either to the LAN on motherboard or to our new Flex LOMs as well, and using it via the shared network port, you can configure your VLAN when you're sharing the wire with your production traffic. Okay, what else?
The one thing that we asked earlier, that you said, as long as you buy a Gen8 server, you get access to the Insight Online.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Do you also get all these features, no matter which version of iLo you have?
Yep.
Because I know a lot of you have to buy a
Right.
upgraded version
Yep.
of iLo.
So there's iLo Standard, which comes with a server because you were smart enough to buy a ProLiant. You get all that stuff included. And there's iLo Advanced, which provides all the industry-leading capabilities. The only thing that I've shown you that is an advanced capability today is the graphical remote console on a DL server after the OS is up and running. Because you get graphical remote console through the post process, including with iLo Standard, but the agentless management, the active health system, the embedded remote support, all that stuff is included with the server, with iLo Standard. The mobile app, 0 cents, that's also free. And so as long as you have the ability to use, the remote console and the virtual media, which I didn't show you that. So I can tap on that and it'll come up and give me an opportunity to grab a URL-based virtual media and connect it up. Also the power control, all built into the system. So all that's included with the server. You were a smart guy, you bought a ProLiant. So, what else? We got 46 seconds left. Okay. All right. I want to thank you guys for being here, and thanks for letting me talk for a short period of time about a product that I care a lot about. Thanks, guys.